Say good morning to Ross Tucker from NBC Sports Network, also working Westwood One Radio. So I'm on the sidelines for the Eagles game against the Falcons, and then he was there for the Jags and the Steelers. Ross, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Which game do you want to start with? What game was more interesting to you?
I want to start with your toughness, Dan. You know, I mean, I'm seeing you on Saturday. Rodney and Dungy both have hats on, not you. And I was on the sideline. It was legitimately cold. So the combination of you not wearing a hat, even though it was legitimately really cold, and the ball cannon incident when it like broke your glasses, or you're a lot tougher than people give you credit for.
I appreciate that, Ross. Hashtag Warrior. The Eagles-Falcons game, you know, I like the Eagles in this game because I thought they were more than just Carson Wentz. But what did you see out of this game as, you know, Philadelphia is going to welcome Minnesota in? The difference in the Falcons and the Vikings for this Eagles team is what?
Yeah, well, I think the Vikings are much better up front, both sides of the ball, than the Falcons were. You know, talking with some of the players and the coaches on the field before that Falcons-Eagles game, they knew the deal. I mean, the Eagles know they got two first-team All-Pro offensive linemen in Kelsey and Lane Johnson. I think their right guard, Brandon Brooks, might be the best of the bunch. Plus, then that D-line with Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. They know that Nick Foles is not as good as Matt Ryan, even though I thought Foles actually played pretty decently, especially in the second half. But they knew they needed to win the game up front, and that's exactly what they did. And that's exactly what they'll try to do against the Vikings. It will not be as easy because the Vikings are really good up front, both sides of the ball as well. But that'll be the recipe for the Eagles. I guess the good news is they're not playing against a quarterback that's as good as Matt Ryan, but I think Keenum definitely has the edge over Foles in Philly.
It feels like we're grading these quarterbacks on a different curve. You know, Brady is in his own classroom here. Case Keenum is probably next. It feels like Foles and Bortles, we grade them that they had a good game if they didn't make any mistakes here. Whereas we're asking Brady to win games, Case Keenum to make a couple of plays, and then you have Foles and Blake Bortles. Do you see it that way?
I think that's a very fair way to look at it. By the way, I'm thrilled for Bortles. I mean, I can't remember a quarterback that's taken as much crap as he has, and he's handled it so well. So I'm really glad he played so well yesterday. I would say this, though. With both Foles and Bortles, not only did they not turn it over, Dan, but both of them made enough third down conversions to lean on their defense, to lean on the running game to get the win. So we've seen a bunch of games recently. The last two games for both those guys, they were horrendous. Yeah. I mean, they gave their team no chance to win. Bortles for about 3 weeks. I don't know how they beat the Bills. Foles the last two times out. The way those guys played this weekend, if they can play that way this weekend again, they at least give their teams a chance to win those games.
You end up doing the Eagles game, and then you have to drive over to the Pittsburgh game the following day. And tell people who was your partner in the car.
Well, it was hilarious because Westwood One said, hey, you can do both games, but can you give Tony Boselli a drive? A ride, and I said, are you kidding me? So you have to understand, Dan, like my junior year of high school was Boselli's rookie year. So his 6 years where he was the best left tackle in the biz, 3-time first-team All-Pro, that was my glory days, high school and college, as a fan. So he was our idol. I mean, we got smaller shoulder pads for him. We had the hair coming out of the back of our helmet because of him. He was the dude. So to be in a car with him for 5 hours, I mean, that would be like, I don't know, you be in a car with like Pete Maravich for 5 hours, driving across the entire state. It was a thrill. I mean, for me, being a Pennsylvania kid, to do the Eagles and Steelers game was awesome enough. But then to drive 5 hours with one of my idols was incredible. And just to hear him tell stories about going against Bruce Smith and Derek Thomas, and I mean, he's hilarious. He said if he could take a pill and play 5 more years, he would.
He's one of those guys that didn't play long enough, but I said, you know, people forget how great he was. I don't know if he'll get into the Hall of Fame. If he played a couple more years, he probably would. But he's up there with Anthony Munoz as two of the greatest left tackles I ever saw.
Yeah, he's a finalist this year again. I think Terrell Davis, Dan, getting in last year.
Yep.
really helps because Tony's basically the O-line version of Terrell Davis. The other difference, though, is that Terrell Davis won 2 Super Bowls and had historic postseason runs, and Boselli played for the Jags. The thing I think is interesting, I'd love to hear you guys talk about at some point, does the Jags winning like this, the Jags getting the AFC Championship game, more conversation about the Jacksonville Jaguars, more conversation about Tony Boselli. I just wonder how much that matters when they get into a room. Because it seemed to me like that was part of the reason why Ricky Jackson, when the Saints won the Super Bowl, that was part of the reason why Ricky Jackson got elected that year. It seems like when your team, the team you played for, goes on a run, it almost helps your Hall of Fame candidacy.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's something to keep an eye on. We're talking to Ross Tucker, Westwood One analyst, and he's got the Minnesota Vikings and the Eagles. That'll be Sunday on Westwood One. You were in Pittsburgh. Explain to me when did you realize Pittsburgh was in trouble?
The first drive, I thought, wow, because they came out really flat. And maybe that's what happens, Dan, when your starting safety is talking about the Patriots, your running back tweets night before the game. We've got back-to-back rematches. I mean, I just talked to Barry Church this morning and talked to some of the Jags before the game. They were really, really offended. I mean, they won 30-9 in Pittsburgh earlier in the year, and the Steelers were acting like they didn't have to play the game. And they came out, punched them in the mouth. That first drive, I thought, oh, boy, we might have a ball game. And then they get a couple 3-and-outs. They get a pick by Miles Jack. It's 21-0, and that's when I really knew this was going to be an awesome game because you knew that Ben and Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, you knew they would mount a comeback. It's almost like, the NBA, that they're always going to make a run. You knew the Steelers were going to make a run, and the Jags did just enough to be able to overcome them. I can't believe that the Jacksonville Jaguars scored 45 points. I know a lot of people are pointing to a couple of the fourth and shorts by Roethlisberger and the Steelers, and I get it, but they gave up 45 points. And I know one was a fumble return for a touchdown, but 45, and they scored 42. Yeah. I guess maybe the best D in the NFL.
Yeah, but there's stuff that's going on with the Steelers that you can't be that good. And I was even talking about this in the first hour. Can you remember a team that had a Hall of Fame quarterback and potential Hall of Famers at wide receiver and running back on the same team, and they have nothing to show for it? And they may not have anything to show for it when it's all said and done. Something's missing here.
No, I'll take it a step further, Dan. They also have the best offensive line in the NFL. It's either them or the Saints, but I'll take the Steelers' offensive line. So you got the best running back, the best wide receiver. You mentioned what you said about Roethlisberger. Here's what's really crazy. I went through this last night, Dan, because you mentioned the Steelers have nothing to show for it the last few years, even though they've had that group. By my count, if you went man for man, I think 3 guys for the Patriots definitely start for the Steelers: Brady, Gronk, and Devin McCourty. Then I think you'd probably take the Patriots corners, Butler and Gilmore, over Joe Hayden and Artie Burns, but that's not like a no-brainer. I think maybe 5 or 6 Patriots would even start for the Pittsburgh Steelers, yet the Patriots are probably going to win, or have a great chance at least, to win their 3rd Super Bowl in the last 4 years, and the Steelers haven't been able to even get to one, even though they have much better personnel across the board.
I'll leave the audience with this because we, of course, cover the serious stories, the hard-hitting stories. Would you leave us with the Tom Brady beer-chugging story, since you were a teammate of his?
Absolutely. Okay. It was back in 2006 training camp. The guy is absolutely a madman, crazy intense about everything he does. It was 2006 training camp. A couple of rookie linemen going against Brady, and I was going to put my money on the rookie O-lineman because I thought, Brady's kind of a pretty boy, whatever. And the older guys on the team looked at me because it was my second year in New England. I'd never seen Brady chug a beer. They looked at me and they were like, Brady is the best chugger I've ever seen in my life. He destroyed them. He slammed down the plastic cup, and I think broke it, and had an intensity like it was more important than the Super Bowl. Everything the guy does in life, Stan, he's a complete psycho about, which I think is why he's this good.
Safe travels there, Ross. Good to talk to you, buddy. And thanks for saying hello.
Absolutely, Dan. Great seeing you.
All right.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.